Perikid Beis Mishnah Daled. We're moving on now to more Kli Matchas. This Mishnah has quite a few cases and lots of options in the Mefarshim as to what all these things mean. So we'll have to try and hone in and choose one of them. Says the Mishnah, Masmar Hagaro Tome. I'll do two pshatim here, both mentioned in Baal Tanura. Masmar is a peg, a nail. Hagara. Now the first pshat in Baal Tanura tells us that a gara is a doctor who's letting blood, and the Masmar Hagara, the word gara means to be megareya. He reduces the amount of blood that you have. And the Masmar is basically a type of little knife that he uses to let the blood. It's actually quite simple. It's actually difficult to understand what the chiddush is. It's a regular metal knife, and of course it's going to be makabel tumah. The second pshat in Baal Tanura is completely different. We're dealing with one of the instruments used by a smith, an ironsmith. So you have your anvil, known as the sadon, the big metal block on which you do your chopping and your banging. And then sometimes you take a kli out of the fire, and you want to be megareya the kli. You actually want to, let's say, chop it in half. So what you have another metal peg, a loose metal peg, which you place on the anvil. The metal peg has a sharp edge, and by putting the kli which you want to break in half on the metal peg and then smashing it with a hammer, because the newly molten kli is sitting on a sharp edge. When you smash it, the sharp edge will form a crack and will break the kli. Will be megareya the kli. That masmar is a loose piece of metal, specially shaped as a wedge in order to do this function. Says the Mishnah, that itself is a function on its own right. It's called a kli maaseh, a kli tashmish, and therefore that metal wedge is tomei. And the Mishnah carries on to other types of metal pegs and metal wedges. For shel even hashois tohor. Rabbi Tzadok mitame. We're all familiar with this. This is even hashois is a sundial. Now there's different ways of learning this Mishnah to understand the machlokas between the Tanna Kamma and Rabbi Tzadok. One way of learning is that the sundial is a typical sundial in your garden, mechubar lekarka. Of course, the sundial is not makabel tumah because it's mechubar lekarka. Normally they're made out of stone, so anyway there wouldn't be makabel tumah. But there are little metal pegs and wedges, pieces that one sticks onto the sundial. They sit in the particular grooves which show the different hours of the day. Those separate loose metal pieces, the question is, do they have their own distinct and discrete function, which is what Rabbi Tzadok says they do, and therefore they are by themselves the ikka of, they are themselves a kli matchas, and therefore are makabel tumah by themselves. The Tanna Kamma says their function is only to be stuck onto the sundial, and therefore they haven't got a kli tashmish, they're bottled to the sundial, and therefore not makabel tumah themselves. The other way of learning is that the sundial is not mechubar lekarka, and the sundial, let's say, is made out of stone and is not makabel tumah because it's made out of stone. However, remember, whenever we have a kli made up of different parts, some metal and some stone, then you go bossa the ikka, the part which is oisa hamasa. The question is here, all the little metal bits they provide a shadow. So Rabbi Tzadok says, well, providing the shadow, that's the main point of the sundial. Therefore they are the ikka, and therefore the whole thing gets a din of a kli matchas. Tanna Kamma says, at the end of the day they're doing nothing. They're just providing a shadow. The ikka of the kli is still the stone, or the wood. And therefore you don't go bossa the matchas, and that's why the Tanna Kamma is mitayr. And the Mishnah carries on. Masmar hagardi tome. Gardi is a weaver. Again, difficult to understand exactly what this is. The simple pshat is the one brought into Tiferes Yisrael. When the threads of the warp are arranged on the loom, it's very important that they all stay in line. Sometimes they get tangled up. Therefore you have a peg, probably with a little hook at the end, and you work its way, the tip, into the threads and straighten them. And the Mishnah is telling you simply, this is called a function of its own right, and therefore this little peg is tomei. Next one. The next one is quite a large array of different views of what this actually means. V'oroin shel gerusois, again, Rabbi Tzadok metame v'chachamim metarin. Here actually we're leaving matchus. According to most Mefarshim, we're actually moving over to wood. The reason why this din is here, because as you can see, in the beginning of the Mishnah, there was a machlokas between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Tzadok. Now we have another one. And we have another one in Mishnah Hay. And you can see in Mishnah Hay, at the end, the Mishnah summarizes it by saying, Shloisha dvorim Rabbi Tzadok metame v'chachamim metarin. There are a group of three where there's a machlokas between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Tzadok, and that's why they're all brought together. Anyway, Oren Shel Grusos. Grusos are people who make a food called split peas. Ligrois is to take peas, it's a member of the pulse family, it's split into two with a special rechaim shel grusos, and then they're all put in this enormous box. And an Oren Shel Grusos is the chest, the box in which these grusos, they pile up. This is where they store and hoard all their split peas. The question is, the tumah of this box. It's an enormous box. Rabbi Tzadok, again, Rabbi Tzadok, metame v'chachamim metarin. The rule for Kli Eitz is, if a box is so big, this rule does not apply to Kli Matches, but with Kli Eitz, if a box is so big that it cannot be mitaltel mole v'rekon, you cannot move it, both in its empty stage and in its full stage, then it's not makabel tumah, under the special rules of Kli Eitz. And the question is here, this Kli, the Chachamim say, well, the rule is it's a Kli Eitz, it's called a Kli Eitz osel nachas, it's a Kli Eitz which basically stands in one place. It's not moved, it's not portable, because it's so big and heavy. Therefore, say the Chachamim that the normal rule applies, and it's not makabel tumah. However, Rabbi Tzadok says it is moved sometimes. It's moved when you want to repair it. You have to take it to the repairman to repair it, and therefore sometimes it's moved, and that's enough, says Rabbi Tzadok, to give it a din of mitaltel, and therefore it is makabel tumah. There's quite a lot of this, and I would recommend you look at the Tosfos Anshe Shem, who explains this machlokas in detail, and I'll add the rider. The Chazon Ish says that the din that the Tosfos Anshe Shem says is not correct. The Mishnah carries on, Hosa agola shalosh al mateches, if this Oren Shel Grusos, which according to the Chachamim the Oren is Torah, has its own metal wagon underneath, a little sort of trolley made out of metal used for transporting this enormous wooden chest, that metal trolley is Tmeah. Now, what you say, of course it is, it's a Kli Shel Matches which has its own use. The answer is, we have another rule. If a Kli Matches is basically primarily Mishamish Eso Eitz, it's Mishamish a Kli Eitz, and that Kli Eitz itself, under its own rules, is Tar, then the Kli Matches which is used to Mishamish Eso Eitz is also Tar. The Mishnah is telling you a trolley used for transporting has got its own identity. It's not called Kli Eitz Hameshamesh Eso Eitz because it can be used for this box, it can be used for another box. It's a trolley. Although the purpose of the trolley is always to transport things which are not makabel tumah, that doesn't mean the Kli Matches is called a Kli Mateches Hameshamesh Eso Eitz HaToir. And therefore the normal rule applies. The trolley is a Kli Matches in its own right, and is Tomei in its own right. That's Mishnah Dalet.